Check 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Checking the sound volume. Oh, my voice sounds terrible today. No. Check 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Check 1, 2. Checking the sound levels. Sounds pretty good, I think.
How does this sound?
Good morning. Welcome to Mount Vernon Unitarian Church. I'm the Reverend Christian Schmidt, the interim minister of this congregation. Whether this is your first time or your 1001st with us, know that you are welcome here and we are glad to have you. We continue to navigate how to best offer services in this time. We're glad we can provide this forum both in person with some precautions and to our virtual audience. In this time, we find comfort and recommit ourselves to the mission of supporting one another in our spiritual journeys, to work for justice, to care for the earth, and build the common good. We gather each Sunday to recommit ourselves to dismantling systems of oppression and injustice. It is good to be together. I have a few announcements. First, this upcoming Saturday from 8:30 a.m. to 11 a.m., we're having an introduction to Unitarian Universalism and to this congregation. If you're newer here, if you've been visiting, if you're thinking about becoming a member, if you don't know what becoming a member means, those are all good reasons to come join us. Actually, we're gathering at 8:30. We'll really get started at 9 a.m. I'll be there. Some of our our lay leaders will be there to talk about everything you could ever want to know. We'll be serving a light breakfast. Outside, if you need childcare, we can help with that. You need to respond to us like today if you need childcare so that we can help arrange it. In any case, you can email our office or membership at mvuc.org to tell us you're coming and to learn more about that. Next Sunday at 5 p.m., we're having our annual meeting. It will be virtual. If you are a member, you should already have gotten information via email about it, about how you can register for it. If you haven't, be in touch with us. We'll make sure you get that. And lastly, we have a special announcement from a partner church, Lisa Blair. Please come on forward.
Good morning, everyone. It's really great to see all of you in person this morning. As Christian said, I'm Lisa Blair, and I'm the chair of our partner church committee here at MVUC. For those of you that don't know, we have two partners, one in Transylvania, where Unitarianism started, and one in the Khasi Hills of India. There are about 10,000 Unitarians in the Khasi Hills of India in the state of Meghalaya in northeast India, and it's the area between Bhutan and Bangladesh. Today there are 32 churches and 6 fellowships in that area, including our village of Maulat, where our partner is located. They have a small church, and they have a Unitarian-run school, which is open to children of all faiths. And we share the support of that school with the Akatink Unitarian Church. We've been their partner for 15 years. It's hard for me to believe that, but I first went there in 2007, and that's when we voted as a congregation to become partners. In mid-April, India suffered torrential rains, even worse than they get in their usual rainy season. In the state of Meghalaya, there were 7 landslides, including in our village of Maulat. I'm sorry to report that 2 people died, a 32-year-old man and a 14-year-old boy. And they were on their way to Shillong, which is a major city in that state, and they got turned back. There was a roadblock, and as they were coming back, they got caught in the landslide, and they died. Several people in our village also lost their homes or had damage to their homes. And when I say homes, I'm talking about very modest dwellings that have basically concrete floors and corrugated tin walls and roofs. They have electricity, but they don't have any running water. And it's a very hilly area. This state of India is called the Scotland of the East. It's very mountainous and it's very beautiful. People build their houses on the side of the hills. And because of the landslide, they lost a lot of homes. And I also just want to make you aware that these are people that are living below the global poverty level of $2 a day. Most of them are subsistence farmers or coal miners, and they live very modestly. I received a letter from the headmaster of the Unitarian school, who is our contact and who is the person who speaks English best and who I can communicate with, and he was asking for our financial help to help the families that lost individuals and have had damage or complete losses to their homes. And so we're taking up a special collection to help these victims of the flooding in our village. We'll pass a second plate today for that purpose, or if you weren't prepared for that, you can also donate on Realm. There's a partner church category, and anything that you're able to give. I know this can be a challenging time for everyone right now, but I can assure you that the funds that we send to them will be used wisely, and they'll go a long way in helping them. And I'll just finish by saying Kublai, which in Kasi means hello, goodbye, and also God bless you. And they're sending their regards to all of you. Thank you for your help.
And finally, just to remind you to continue to look to our various communications methods for updates about worship and all our church happenings. If you're ever in need, please be in touch. I invite us all now to take a deep breath in and out as we enter into our time of worship with our chalice lighting and opening words. We bring so much to this time and place. Our love, our concern, our bodies, our minds, our hopes, and today our questions. This sacred hour is a special time to learn and contemplate, to be held, and to hold others in love. May we take this opportunity to be together, to laugh and cry, and to ponder those questions, great and small, that make up our lives. And so today we light our chalice in honor of our questions, those that can be answered and those that cannot yet. I invite us all to rise in body or spirit and join in our opening hymn, number 354, in your gray hymnals, We Laugh, We Cry.
We
Please be seated. So we're doing something a little different today. It's one of my favorite days of the year, honestly. We're doing something called Question Box, and we call it that because in some of our RE classes, especially in Our Whole Lives, our sexuality curriculum, we have a box into which you can write on paper and submit a question anonymously, and the instructors will answer it, or attempt to, or say they don't know the answer. And today, Anne and I are doing the same thing with all of us. You had the chance to submit questions to me via email. I got quite a few, all over the map in terms of types of questions. And so today Anne is going to answer some now, and I'm going to answer some more later. I'm going to read Anne her questions. I will read aloud my questions later.
Did you want to ask if they had any first?
Sure.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay.
Any buzzing, pressing questions you must ask Anne right now. About anything. But
I am the
especially-
director of Lifespan Spiritual Growth here at Mount Vernon Unitarian Church. Lisa.
I have to say that I'm very much apart from this. I wondered how the children are doing, how they're coping with the pandemic, and what you've been able to do to help them.
You know, that's a really good question. One of the things that we've been trying to do, Lisa's asking, what with the pandemic, how are the kids coping, and what have we been able to do? And in general, the issues they have, I feel, are the same that the adults have. That sense of isolation, the interruption of pattern and life, you know, going to school every day and that sort of thing. We have done everything under the sun. One thing we did is we changed the way we measure success in RE programs. And it's more about being able to have the program and have kids benefit than the number who attend. So we have done things like we called all the families 3 times over the course of the last 2 years, every single one, and we talked to the kids as well as the adults. And whether they came to the church or not, even if we hadn't seen them in 2 years, we called them and said, how are things? And I think it's the same thing for adults. People want to know that their community is still there for them. And also, because we changed the way we measure success, we started trying a lot of things. My annual report is a list of failures, but some really bright successes. So, yeah.
All right, I'll ask you one of these. What do you most enjoy about your role here at MVUC?
It's variety. I mean, one week I'll be, for example, one Sunday I was holding a bee by its wings to keep it from disrupting the service. And then the next Sunday I'll be writing this serious play about the death of Christ. And then the following Sunday I will open my lesson plan and see that I have 45 minutes to explain to 5-year-olds what is God. I mean, there is not a thing that I have done you would not, did you know that I slept in the dog bed in my office once?
No.
Yes, I could not get home. And I slept, now there's one of those folding pads in my closet.
This seems especially important today. How do you talk with young people about challenging topics?
Well, it depends on the topic, to be honest. The rule of thumb, developmentally for children, is to follow their lead. If they're asking questions about COVID, to answer them honestly, never lead them, but don't give them more information than what they asked. And it's true with COVID as well. And also with where are my friends? What are they doing? And When you ask that question, my mind goes straight to COVID. But there are a number of other things that's sort of the baseline.
Yeah. So I asked you what you enjoy most. What do you find most challenging about your role here?
I live near Dulles Airport. 2 hours every day I come here in the car. And at my point in life, I would rather have time than money. So in a way, COVID has taught me how to work more efficiently at home. And I'm telling you, that gift of 2 more hours to work for MVUC has made, it's made a difference. Mm-hmm. So that's the challenge, but also, we're playing around with some solutions.
What's the best memory you have of working with children?
I can't even.
All right, what's a good memory?
I'll tell you something that happened this fall, because it was recent. Great. We had RE outside, and as you may or may not know, the outdoor amphitheater, which is behind the wall garden, was cleaned up for this occasion. And we had really good turnout, especially compared to other churches in the area, every Sunday morning. And while you all weren't able to meet, we were here every Sunday morning. 10 Sundays in a row of good sunshine. So one morning, I was there early, trying to put out puppets and books and think about what we were doing, and I hear in the distance, "Miss Ann," and I look up, and it's a long stone pathway down to the amphitheater. And here comes little Julia, she's 4. And as she came closer, it got louder, "Miss Ann, Miss Ann, Miss Ann, Miss Ann, Miss Ann." And there is something about looking up and see a child who's so happy to be there and so happy to see you. It made getting up early worth every second.
Let's ask if we have any more questions in the congregation.
I should, my grandparents were apiarists, so I knew about bees. And this particular one was a morning when they had tried to abate them, but they had only stunned them. So you can imagine the kids are sitting on the red marker watching them slowly crawl in their these were high bees. These bees were high. And it was distracting, so my attempt was to do the least distracting thing, right? So I just picked it up and held it like this. And I thought nobody was watching, but I got a call, a note in my email from Green Sanctuary. I don't know if you remember them, saying, "Thank you for not killing the bee and for taking it out afterwards."
If you could change anything at Mount Vernon Unitarian Church, what would it be and why?
Location. If you could all move out, even towards Annandale, that'd be great.
Great. Any other questions I should have asked?
I love questions. I think one of the big problems we have now with the kids meeting at 11:30, there's a lot of really great things happening. We have an RE program for adults that has over 20 people in it. It has been wonderful to separate RE from worship. And we did it because of COVID. We didn't do it for the benefits. But one of the really serious drawbacks is that we only have Zach and Marcel and Hudson here in the mornings. So I really hope people ask more questions. I want to communicate more and not lose the connection between the little kids. And just to remind you, because I've been talking about kids all morning, only 1/5 of my job is kids. I have 5 things in my portfolio, and only one of them is children. So,
what are the other 4 things?
Why, thank you for asking. Administration. I'm the liaison with the preschool, for example, and sit on a lot of the task force for health and that sort of thing. Adult religious education, which we are about to start up again, and if anybody's interested in that, I hope they'll approach me. Multi-generational events like Easter egg hunts and Halloween events. Let's see, oh, it's so much. Worship. I do a story every Sunday, and for special events, we do things, Easter, we do services together and things. And was that 5?
Yeah.
Okay.
Children would be the 5th.
And the
Children's Art.
children.
Right.
Yes, never forget them.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks for asking. If you've got more questions.
Yeah, be in touch with Ann.
Vernon Unitarian Church continues to share with faith with committed organizations that you are members of children. During the month of May, our offering is being shared with the Retention Fund. Your generosity will continue to fuel this movement and will honor King's legacy of hope and love. This fund supports youth and young adult ministries at the regional and national level. We are a community that invites spiritual and material generosity to our members and friends. I invite this gathered community to offer whatever you are most comfortable with in spirit and financial generosity for the mission of our church community. If you would like to write and mail a check for the offering, please make it to MTUC and in the memo line indicate how you would like it to be used. You can also use our website to give directly. We are so grateful for your donation.
We're so thankful for your generous gifts. I invite us all now to take a moment to prepare ourselves for our time of silent reflection, followed by spoken words. So get those wiggles out, get comfortable where you're seated. Take a breath in and out. And join me in a time of silence. It felt right to share these words, especially in the wake of yet another racist shooting in our country yesterday in Buffalo, New York, as we reel once again from the horror of gun violence. A prayer I wrote some time ago that is sadly still too relevant. Spirit of life and love, be with us in this time as people suffer, as parents grieve, as violence rages. Be with us who feel the pain of loss, who feel anger at injustice. Be with the oppressed. Change the heart of the oppressor. For we know both are joined in our humanity, no matter how often we might forget it. Help us to remember the hope we had, the hope we still have, and the hope we will have. Help us to remember joy in the midst of sadness, success in the midst of challenge, good things in the midst of bad. Help us all to be better people, to work for better things, and to create a better world. Amen. I invite you to remain seated as we once again open our hymnals to number 113, Where is Our Holy Church? That's 113.
This morning's reading is by Elizabeth Wynne, entitled, There Is No Easier Way. I once saw a little sign carved in wood that read, There's only the hard way. Many of us have been harmed by theology that told us that suffering was a sacrifice that would bring us closer to God. Many of us were told that our suffering would redeem us, even when we knew that actual redemption would have been to be free from the suffering to begin with. Many of us are only here because of the sacrifices of others. So much of what is possible to carve out in this world requires some giving up, some letting go, some sacrifice. That is the truth of that little wooden sign. There is no easy way. There's only the hard way. In particular, the work of justice often asks us to do impossible, hard, terrifying things. There is no easier way. There is only this one hard way. Folks with more privilege sometimes get caught up here. If it's hard, maybe we're doing it wrong, we tell ourselves. We are lulled by our experiences of choosing between a hard choice and an easier one. Folks with less privilege know that many of our choices are between a horrific choice and a horrific choice. We learn to live with that and keep going. Many of us want to do the right thing, the just thing, the generous thing, and also to not have to give anything at all. We want to share our opinions, but not actually donate our evenings, our weekends, our doing dishes while on the conference call to get to understand the work enough to be able to offer meaningful thoughts. We want people to trust us and let us shape one vision, but not actually risk inviting folks out to tea, dinner, beers, or church to build a relationship that endures and carries us forever. We may want to post the cute meme without actually making the phone call to the city councilor or state representative. We want to be part of that powerful, courageous, game-changing direct action without the long past midnight planning meetings, the messy decision-making, the frayed relationships, and the constant wondering if this is even worth it. We want to talk about being bound together in interdependence, but not actually want to give our guest room to a stranger, give a paycheck to somebody we've never met, or turn our schedule inside out to do what needs to be done. The word sacrifice might be too much mess for some of us, too tainted by oppression and coercion. What matters more is that we are willing to live our lives in the shape of what is being asked, not hope that we are asked to do what will fit the shape of our lives.
Children that need to be loved. We were willing, we came when you called. But man, you fooled us, enough is enough. What about us? What about all the times you said you had the answers? What about us? What about all the broken happy ever afters? What about us? What about all the plans that ended in disasters? Oh, what about love? What about trust? What about
I don't want control. I want to let go. Are you ready? I'll be ready, 'cause now it's time to let them know we are ready. What about us?
What about us? What about us? What about us?
What about
I want to thank y'all so much for that. I asked Mark especially if I could have that song in this service. It's just so lovely. So I'm answering questions today too. I got a number of them emailed to me ahead of time, but I'm happy to take some live too. Do you want to take the mic out there and see if anyone wants to ask me a question? Or, oh, whoever. I'm happy. All right, well, while y'all are thinking of some great questions, I'll answer one here. I'll start with maybe an easy one. Do you think your first name influenced your career choice? No. My parents even said at one point, like, they never even really thought about the name. It's a family name, right? Like, it's a very common name in German. And I come from a German background, so Christian is just like Christopher in Germany. And I love my name, and I went by Chris as a child and started using Christian when I was a journalist because it was a little more distinctive. Though now there's a whole generation of little boys named Christian running around that are younger than me, so it's less distinctive than it used to be. All right, I'll keep on going. If y'all have a question, just raise your hand. Mario will come to you, I promise. Ann has a question.
I do. Actually, can I use my mic so he doesn't have to repeat it? So, because I asked if I could ask a question. I just want you to know I got permission. I used to be an interim DRE before I came here, and we had 5 things we had to do in addition to keep the church running. And I have never known whether it's the same things that we had to do that ministers have to do. And if they do have those 5 things, where do you think we did? Where does MVUC, what are our strengths and weaknesses within that frame?
Yeah. So I've been doing interim ministry for about 8 years now, off and on, not every year. And they've updated these 5. They were 5 tasks. They didn't like the word task anymore because it sounds like you finish them and you're done forever. So now there are 5 areas of focus, and they've since updated them a couple times since. So because you told me you might ask me that, I went and made sure I had them right and up to date. Because I would be the sort of person who would, start doing what you did earlier and forget at least one of them. Which is why I use notes a lot. Okay, anyway. The 5 areas are coming to terms with history, discovering a new identity, allowing needed leadership change, renewing denominational ties, and committing to new directions in ministry, which is a lot of words. I usually think of it as history, identity, leadership, denominational ties, and new directions. And every congregation is different on this and different in what they need. Some have really painful history they're having to come to terms with and move forward. Not that there haven't been any painful parts of MVU's history, but I didn't see that as a huge problem here coming in. But I've learned a lot about the history of the congregation. Discovering a new identity. This is often really important when you've had a beloved long-term minister, as MVUC has had. Kate was here for quite a long time in these times in ministry, at least. And I think the congregation came to strongly identify with her and her ministry, which is really great. And your next minister is not going to be Kate. They're going to be different. I'm different. So that is an important thing. And I think just hiring an interim like me, who is physically, but also personality-wise very different from Kate, is a very is one way to start that process. I don't mean to be informal too. Reverend Kate Walker. 3, allowing needed leadership change. This always happens, right? We're always turning over. We don't want people to burn out in the same positions. We want people, and we want to bring new energy in. I think this has been a little bit of a struggle this year, in part because the pandemic has made some of that kind of weird. I think there's maybe a little ebb in energy, and this is something the board and I have really talked about tackling in the fall and going into next year. So that's one place where there's some needed change. Renewing denominational ties sounds like just a lot of syllables there. Some congregations tend to kind of isolate, right? They don't maybe use our regional staff resources through the Unitarian Universalist Association. They kind of do their own thing, and sometimes that's really great. Sometimes it's really not. But my sense is that our congregation has actually had a really strong tie to other UU congregations and to our denomination as a whole, and has used resources really well. One part that we've really had to lean into this year is the search process is a very specific part. The search process for a new settled minister is a very specific part of the UUA that you're interacting with a lot. And so renewing those specific ties we really worked on. And then committing to new directions in ministry. This means being ready to and embracing a new person in the thing. And that's something we'll actually work on more this coming year. And as we, a year or so from now, get to know and probably consider a new minister at candidating week. That was very general. I'll just say, I didn't come into this congregation knowing that there are these 4 things I absolutely need to tackle and change. And in some congregations I have. In some congregations I've gone, we have some really serious staff issues here we need to settle out. Or there's a $300,000 budget deficit we need to really tackle. Mount Vernon is a very healthy place. And the changes have been much more subtle. And there are some things we're really working on. Our communications has needed some work. Figuring out pandemic ministry and how to do multi-platform work, I'm looking over at our team right now, has been something I did not anticipate 2 years ago, but a really big part of our ministry. Okay, I've said enough about that. I'll say more about that in the coming year too. Okay, moving on to a really softball question. What is the meaning of life? I was asked. I don't know that I have a good answer to that, but I'm talking about something related next week, actually, if I can plug next week's sermon. I'm talking about being good and what that means, and I think that's part of the answer is how we know what we should be doing. What is the sort of, maybe not meaning of life, but what is our goal? What is the direction we should be going? So come next week and listen to the sermon. Maybe it'll have some of that answer. I got the same questions Anne got about what do I most enjoy about being in my role at MVUC, and I have some of the same answers. I love the variety too. Every day and every week there is something different about parish ministry, whether it's dealing with one bee or with potential bee problems in our buildings, as in they're trying to build nests. That was a new one for me this year. I hadn't dealt with bee infestations before. But one day you're with somebody who's dying or whose family member is dying. A different day you're writing a sermon about any one of a number of topics. You're talking to your music director about doing a Pink song in service, which I don't know if y'all know Pink. I'm a huge Pink fan, and there's some Pink songs that would absolutely not be appropriate in service. It's just every day is different, and you get to talk to different people, and people walk into your office, and you often have no idea what they're coming to talk to you about, even if they've told you, because a lot of times what they tell you they're coming to talk to you about is not really what they need to talk about. In fact, I would say 3/4 of the time that's true. Not because they're trying to deceive you, but just because they needed an excuse to meet with you to lay down whatever's on their soul. And that's what I love about it. That might also be what's most challenging, is I have a lot of flexibility in my schedule. I have the ability to do different things. And sometimes not knowing what you're going to do on a specific day is really challenging, especially when you have kids and you get a call from the nurse saying they need to be picked up and you have a really important thing to do. So, and actually that's an answer too, is being a parent and a minister at the same time is both amazing and really challenging every day. I think I'm a much better minister because I'm a parent, and a better parent because I'm a minister, and those two things are sometimes in conflict, at least in terms of my time and energy, so that's a hard one. All right, more questions. I love the questions we get. Do you like dogs or cats better? This feels like a really loaded question. I'll give a little background. Is we didn't have a lot of pets when I was growing up because my sister had pretty significant allergies. I had mice for a while. I kept in a cage. Blanquito and Cookie were their names. They were all white and kind of Oreo colored, respectively. And then at a different time, I stress, I had a snake for a while. Which are great pets, actually. You don't have to feed them that often. They actually, the non-venomous ones at least, really like to be around people. They will like coil around you. I know, some people don't like that, but it was really great, actually. Anyway, to flash forward, my experience with dogs and cats has mostly been as an adult, because my wife really wanted a cat, and the boys really wanted a dog, and we now have one of each. And I'm not trying to be diplomatic here, but it's just different, right? The cat doesn't need you that much, you know? They're kind of on their own wavelength. And the dog is probably more loving, but also much more needy. So they're both great. We have really great pets. Tessie and Maddie, our cat and dog, respectively. I got several questions actually related to the 8th principle, which I know some of you were at the workshop a week ago. To give a little background to that, the Unitarian Universalist Association has 7 principles, 7 guiding principles that we covenant and affirm to promote. There is a proposal with the General Assembly, with our denomination's business meeting, to add an 8th principle, one that specifically endorses and promotes anti-racist principles in all we do. The other 7, though I think they're very much in line with anti-racist principles, do not mention race at all. And it's been an interesting discussion, because some people say that calling out race specifically means that it's being privileged over other oppressions. A lot of people have pointed out that it's our country's sort of original sin is racism, right? There isn't an America without the history of slavery, of Jim Crow, of sharecropping, etc. And one of the proposers of this, Paula Cole-Jones, who led our workshop a week ago, has said that she came to this idea about the 8th principle because she was with dozens of UU congregations and talking to thousands, probably, of Unitarian Universalists. And a lot of them thought they were doing a really good job following the 7 principles and still had elements of oppression, elements of racism in what they do. Not often conscious, but unconscious, the sort of structural racism that's built into our whole society. And she said, if you can follow the 7 principles and still be promoting structural racism, something is wrong. And so she said, okay, let's do an 8th principle that makes it clear that that's not okay. A lot of people have complained about the specific language of it. We love to tinker with words and wordsmith. I don't have a lot of energy for that discussion. Like, we can tinker till the end of time with words, but I think it's pretty good. I'm in support of it. One of the things I learned at the workshop a week ago is that there's something like 180 congregations have endorsed formally the eighth principle. There's about 1,000 UU congregations altogether. But about 85% of the congregations in the greater Washington, D.C. area have endorsed the principle, and we haven't. And I think that's really something for us to think about. It's really my hope that we can continue the education process this coming year about the eighth principle and consider endorsing it at the May meeting a year from now. So I'll just put my cards on the table. That's where I am on the eighth principle. And I am happy to talk more about that with anyone who wants to. I got a question, just looking at the clock here. Oh my, how did that happen? I ran through like 20 minutes already, right? Okay. Well, I'm not going to get through all these questions, but let me answer at least one more. Where was it? What made me want to become a minister? I love to talk about this because I did not get a flash from the sky or a vision or anything quite so concrete. I feel like actually I would feel better if I had, because that would be really, really clear. I was a lay leader in my congregation. I was super involved. I was on the worship committee. I was helping lead worship like I am right now. I was teaching high school, youth group, Sunday religious education. I was just doing everything, basically. I was helping paint the RE wing, you name it. And at the same time, I was still doing my job. I was a journalist in my previous career. I worked for daily newspapers as a reporter and editor for about 5 years altogether. And at some point, I just realized like the things I wanted to do with my life, which was go be at church and be doing this thing we're doing together, my need to make a living was actually kind of getting in the way of that. And I was like, there's got to be a way for me to fit these two things together, right? And initially, I didn't necessarily think that was ordained ministry. I thought I might do some other work in the church. The Unitarian Universalist Association runs a magazine called UU World. That seemed like an interesting thing. And in fact, I did end up working for UU World for a couple of years. But talking about this with my minister and with my friends and with my parents, it just seemed to me that doing ordained parish ministry was a lot of the things I wanted to do with my life, and really felt like it was fulfilling what I would now call a call, right? Like, it just made sense. And I think not just ministers have calls. Like, I think all of us have things we're called to do, whether that's, parenthood or working. I know a lot of us who work in government and that feel like we're doing something really important with our lives and making a difference in the world. And part of the trick of it is trying to find where that little niche is. Howard Thurman says, oh man, I gotta think of the quote for a second here. Just one second, it's coming to me, I promise you. Don't think about what the world needs from you. Think about what makes you come alive, because what the world needs is people who have come alive. I didn't get it exactly right, but that's a pretty close paraphrase. And doing parish ministry makes me feel come alive, and so does parenthood. Like, I feel like that's a calling for me too. So I need to stop there because we're at an hour already and we need to finish up the service. But I want to thank all of you who sent me questions. I'm going to try to answer some of these maybe in future newsletter columns, or like I said, one of them will come up really strongly next week's sermon. So thank you so much. If you would please rise and body your spirit for our closing hymn, number 112, that's 112, Do You Hear?
In the
Please join me as we recite the words together as we extinguish our chalice. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we gather again.
Our benediction today is by the Reverend Wayne Arneson. It's one of my very favorites. He writes, "Take courage, friends. The way is often hard, the path is never clear, and the stakes are very high. Take courage, for deep down there is another truth. You are not alone." Our worship is ended, and our service begins. Please be seated.